Greetings and salutations, creature lovers. This is Mr. Venom welcoming you to No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts, episode number 40. Before we get into this week's movie, let me go ahead and introduce my cohorts. Coming to us from Fresh Cuts and the Horror Countdown podcast, it is Mr. Don Anelli. How you doing, Don?
What's going on? Always happy to be here.
And coming to us from the main show, No More Room in Hell, it is Mr. Derek B. How you doing, Derek?
Hey, yo. Talk about some giant scorpions here.
All right, folks. Well, before we get into this month's feature, I did have one tiny little piece of news about an announcement that was made since our last episode. If you guys remember going all the way back to December of 2022, episode 14 of Creature Comforts, we did our very first brand new movie. It took us 14 episodes to do our first new creature feature to that year, of course. And that was, of course, Troll, which was released in December of 2022 on Netflix. Well, friends, in the last couple of weeks, it has been announced that we will be getting a sequel from the same creative team that brought us the original Troll, which I'm pretty sure we all kind of fawned over. I remember absolutely loving it. I've actually watched it a couple of times since we did that show.
Yeah,
something about
my dad watch it. I even had my dad get into it. He likes it too.
Something about Norwegian creature features just always works for me. Stuff like Troll Hunter and stuff like that. So anyway, the point is that yes, Netflix did announce that we will be getting a Troll 2. And they're going to be releasing it on the exact same day that they released the first one. The first movie was released on December 1st, 2022. This one, Troll 2, will be released on December 1st of this year, 2025. So I'm pretty sure it's safe to say we already know what our December episode is going to be. Since we had such a great time with the first movie, I figured let's go ahead and continue the trend. Obviously, with creature features, we don't get as many new ones as we'd like. And a lot of times, a lot of the new ones aren't really anything that any of us really want to talk about that much. So whenever the opportunity comes around for us to be able to do a brand new creature feature, we will absolutely take the opportunity. And, Don and I will just pick a different movie on Fresh Cuts to do that week, much to Mike Merriman's chagrin. But what do you got?
Hey, Mike can always join us. He's welcome.
Of course he is. Of course, he's basically the founder of our feast. He is the man who created No More Room in Hell. So of course he's always welcome here, as much as we joke around with him. But yeah, look for that in December. I guess that'll be like episode 46, 47, depending on if my math is correct. But look out for that one. Troll 2 in December. Very excited for that one. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the festivities for this episode. For this episode, it is Derek's turn to pick the movie. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Derek and let him introduce this month's movie. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay, yeah. We're going to be doing a little movie from the 50s. I think 1954 to be exact. I might be wrong about that.
57.
57, yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to be doing from 1957, The Black Scorpion, yes. Which is one that I always like kind of gravitated for because weirdly, I don't know if we're getting into like the history of the movie yet or our thoughts on it, but yeah, it's the one that I always remembered like this weird how I discovered this movie. Did you guys ever hear of the movie Teeth?
Yes, love teeth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, yes. They were
Vagina
using, like,
dentata.
yes, yes, and they were actually showing this in like the main character's like class, the Black Scorpion, and she started to have nightmares of the close-up of our smiley scorpion face, and it was kind of like the smiley scorpion face is her vagina. That's what I think they were trying to do with that scene, but but that's how I first came about this movie, and I always knew about it, but then I knew a little bit more about it later on, and I thought it'd be a fun one to go back to the 50s. It's been a while since we've been there in that sense, where and we get to talk about like actually our first episode's special effects artist. So it was a supervisor of this, Willis O'Brien. So that it kind of hit all the boxes for me in that sense. But yeah, that's why I picked it. It's a fun watch. Plus, it also has returning Richard Dennon from Creature from the Black Lagoon, what we did last year.
Mm-hmm. That slimy little white man.
Oh yeah,
and he's still slimy, but we'll get into that in a little bit. All right, folks. So that means, of course, this month's movie is The Black Scorpion, coming to us from 1957.
Most terrifying news of all. At nightfall, monstrous animals crawl out of crater of volcano. Great herds of cattle stampede before this living inferno. Vast area devastated by appalling new horror. A creature named the Black Scorpion by panic-stricken people of San Lorenzo. Entire population prays for deliverance.
For miles around, cowboys came upon one dead steer after another. One of them had heard the tale of the demon bull of the Maricopa. Having lost family or friends, something absolutely unknown. We could be in another world.
Nation's leaders confer as news received of possible threat to capital.
This is a city of 4 million people. If word of this leaks out, the panic of the population could be worse than the scorpions.
The Black Scorpion destroys communications. Hundreds annihilated. Produced on a scale never achieved before by any science fiction picture. Thousands in the cast.
This movie is unrated, and mind you, it's only unrated because the MPAA didn't exist yet in the 50s, so most movies back then aren't really rated. This movie is directed by Edward Ludwig. It is written by David Duncan, Robert Blees, and Paul Yawitz. It is starring, of course, as we've already mentioned, Mr. Richard Denning of Creature from the Black Lagoon fame. Maura Corday as a Mexican ranch owner.
I know you have some thoughts on that.
Oh, I'm going to have a lot of thoughts on it, especially because of the casting of some other characters in the movie as well, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And also starring Carlos Rivas as our geologist, our Mexican geologist in the film. Our synopsis is as follows. Volcanic activity frees giant scorpions from the earth who wreak havoc in the rural countryside and eventually threaten Mexico City. All right, folks. So, of course, the Black Scorpion, something that creature feature fans are very familiar with, something that also Mystery Science Theater fans are very familiar with, as this is one of the more popular season 1 episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000. I actually did rewatch both the original film and the Mystery Science Theater version just to kind of cover my bases. We're not going to spend too much time on Mystery Science Theater because obviously most of our episodes consist of films that have probably either been done by Mystery Science Theater, Riff Tracks, the Mads, or some other form of movie riffing out there. So obviously, if we want to talk about movie riffing, I'll start a movie riffing podcast. But we are talking The Black Scorpion. So let's go ahead and get into some of our general thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Derek so he can finish up his general thoughts. Derek, yeah, let's talk about it.
Now, the Black Scorpion, like my general thoughts on it as a whole, I still have fun with it, but I do like kind of see some of the taboos of like the era that it came out in a little bit more with a more like adult eye, like you should settle down and get married, woman. You know, that kind of romancy drama that happens in a lot of these 50 bug movies. It's not as bad as the Deadly Mantis. That's like the worst one where the girl just ends up like quitting her job and like, I'm gonna marry you now. Like, you know what I mean? It's not that bad. Or like the Giant Claw. Those movies have way worse examples of it, in my opinion. This one's a little bit more like there, but there's a lot of action and set pieces that kind of make up for that set of it, you know, and the whole thing with like actors being cast in like different race roles. Unfortunately, it's the time of even like in the Japan, they were having fucking actors play like natives that had blackface, you know. It's like I'm kind of used to it in that sense with like movies like King Kong versus Godzilla, or even like fucking Gappa. Oh, Gappa has the worst fucking blackface ever in that movie. We might talk about that one day, but we'll save that for another show. Yeah, you know, like I wasn't really thinking about that shit like when I was a kid watching this movie or as a teenager or whatever the fuck. I don't even honestly remember the first time I actually sat down and watched this movie. But overall, you know, like in that sense where I love like all the stop motion shit in this movie. It's kind of like the highlight of it, especially the climax at the stadium where the Scorpions just fucking tanks and helicopters and everything up. And, you know, on this watch, I actually kind of felt bad for him when he fucking went, you know, because he had like that, you know, he had that smile on his face for most of the movie until that fucking spear went into him. He's like, "Arr!" And then he showed him dead. I'm like, oh, that's kind of sad, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen this guy smile through the whole movie. It kind of made me feel bad for him a little bit, even though he killed like all his brothers and sisters. But yeah, like the whole cave sequence, I fucking loved. Like growing up, like with the fucking little worm thing that was kind of reminded me of like that deleted scene from like King Kong where they had like certain elements of that in it too, which I kind of dug. Overall, I still have fun with it for what it is. You know, is it a perfect movie by any means? Not really with story wise, but you know, at least it's a quick watch. And a lot of like I was reading like on Wikipedia, like this movie said it was too long. I'm like, this movie's only an hour and 88 minutes, so if that's fucking long for then, and I wonder what fucking short was. You know what I mean?
I know. I mean, today, sub 90 minutes is actually perfect. With the amount of movies that we watch, anytime I see a movie that's 90 minutes or below, I'm very happy. So, yeah, I guess 90 minutes was too long for 1957.
Yeah.
All right, Don, why don't you come on in here and give us some general thoughts on the Black Scorpion?
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of this one. I don't put it at the highest levels. Like, it's not like an A tier stuff like, you know, Them or Beast from 20,000 Fathoms or Gojira or anything like that. It's more like, you know, towards like the top of like the B tier, which, you know, I mean, when we start covering the rest of those, we'll probably start, you know, talking more about them. But I've always been a big fan of this one. I love the monster design. You know, the mix of stop motion and practical puppetry I really like. I think it kind of gives the creature a little bit of flavor. Sure, it looks a little derpy, and you know the thing drools more than a flock of Saint Bernards, but I find it endearing. It kind of gives him his own little personality, his own little flavor. I love the way that this unfolds. It's like this, mystery in the first half where you're trying to figure out where all these, strange events are occurring. What's the cause of it? The revelation about the creatures being there, the backstory about how they came to be, frozen in volcanic lava, how they're released and going on a rampage, the, city destruction scene, the military skirmish. It feels very classic monster filmy, and it kind of makes it, like we were saying, like you don't really realize it's that long just because it hits all the formulaic beats. And, it kind of just makes it like that much more immersive. I get what you're saying about all of the, the societal problems that were going on inside, talking down to women, making them, feel like their only value is a husband, like all that kind of stuff. I'm not really a fan of looking for that kind of stuff, just because it's something that happened, back then, but it doesn't anymore. So it's not like it really bothers me that much.
Yeah, yeah. You say it like about every like 50s movie, to be honest.
Like that's what I'm saying is that, if you're looking at something like that to downgrade a movie, you're not going to enjoy anything. So, the fact that we've accepted it and moved on, it's kind of like, okay, like that's, it's got nothing to do with me. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to hammer the film for that, like Derek said, there's others we can definitely do this with as well.
I can't wait till we talk about the giant claw.
If you're not looking for that, if you don't really care, it's not going to damage the film that much. The film's fun. The action's really cool. The creatures look good. It kind of hits all the marks that you need it to. Maybe that makes it, a little formulaic. Maybe that makes it kind of, not really stand out that much. But yeah, it's one of the better ones. It's not like, the top tier or anything like groundbreaking or anything, but yeah, it's definitely a fun time. And it's, definitely one that I think a lot of fans of that style will really enjoy.
Absolutely. So for me, I'm probably going to surprise some people. I absolutely adore this film. I fucking love every second of this movie. Now, it could be, I'm fully aware that it could be because of my love of Mystery Science Theater and the fact that that was the first time I'd ever seen this movie was as, a Mystery Science Theater movie riff. But over the years, I've watched this, by itself, without the riffing, and I'm sorry. I think this movie is greatly underappreciated. I think that the stop motion effects in this movie are stellar, absolutely stellar, and they should be considering the pedigree that we have. Obviously, Derek already mentioned that Willis O'Brien did the effects for this movie. My friends, Willis O'Brien did the effects for the original King Kong, Son of Kong, and Mighty Joe Young, among a bunch of others as well. So, I mean, we've got the pedigree here for these effects. These are Harryhausen quality effects here, my friends. I mean, there are two shots specifically that I always kind of highlight when I'm talking about the stop motion. The first one is when the scorpion destroys the telephone truck. That shot is amazing. I absolutely love that. I mean, I watched that shot and I just can't get over that this is 1957, that this was done in 57. The other one is later in the film, after they blow up the kind of hive that the scorpions have. There's a shot of a train attack, and the big scorpion, the head scorpion, if you will, basically turns on all the other scorpions and starts attacking them. There's a shot where the big scorpion lifts up one of his smaller brothers or sisters above his head, and once again, it is a gorgeous shot. I cannot get over how amazing it is. Another thing that I really like about this movie, most movies like creature features like this, when they do stop motion, it's only the creature that's done in stop motion. So whenever the creature is on screen, it's almost a little jarring, like it takes you out of it. But this movie, Edward Ludwig actually did multiple stop motion scenes that don't have anything to do with the scorpions. So it's almost like when we see the stop motion of the scorpions, it's not as jarring because we also have scenes of the scientist being lowered into the cavern and being raised up from the cavern, and those shots are done in stop motion.
Yeah, it
Also,
kind of reminded me of Mad God a little bit with like when the
yes,
thing was traveling down the elevator.
exactly. Yeah. And then even the train, like before the train attack, just the shots of the train going down the track. Again, stop motion with the passengers on and the inside of the train were actually drawn onto the windows of the toy train. And what's funny is there's actually a goof in the movie, a pretty major one, where after the train is derailed, you can see the name of the train, and it's literally called Lionel Lines. My friends, there is no real train called Lionel Lines. That's a toy line. So the movie was a little heavy-handed with the fact that this was a toy train. It would almost be like using a forklift or something in a movie and seeing the Tonka logo on the side. It's like,
That'd be amazing.
That's not real. So
Godzilla -2.
Tonka. Absolutely. A big old Tonka bulldozer or something. But anyway, like I said, that's not something that everyone's going to catch. And ultimately, it doesn't really take you out of the movie. We know that it's a toy train. It's not like they actually, just derailed an entire train just for this low budget creature feature. So again, like I said, just the liberal use of stop motion, not just for the scorpions, but for other human scenes as well. It just makes the scenes of the scorpions less jarring and that much more impressive to me. The misogyny in the movie, honestly, it doesn't bother me that much here. Like the misogyny in the original Wolfman, or like Derek said, in the Giant Claw, I feel is way worse. Here, it's almost cute. Like Hank Scott, he's almost being cute with Teresa. Like he's not necessarily being, he is being,
of course you're going to try to flirt with her.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's the first attractive woman he met since he's been in Mexico. Of course he's going to try to hit on her. But I thought that the hitting on her was actually somewhat respectful. Like he didn't force himself on her. He didn't grab her at any time. So in all honesty, the misogyny here does not bother me at all. Now,
weirdly enough, she was actually the girl in the Giant Claw, which is weird.
That's right. I didn't realize. Oh my God, you're right. I totally forgot. It's been about 15 years since I've seen the Giant Claw. So yeah.
Isn't she also Deadly Mantis? Isn't that also her, or is that someone else?
I'll investigate. Carry on, Venom.
All right. One thing that does bother me about the movie is the casting. Now, let me caveat this before people start jumping down my throat. I don't care about a white woman being cast as a Mexican. I genuinely don't, because that's called acting. And I appreciate it. It's kind of like when Tom Hanks played Forrest Gump. Like he couldn't do that today because people would be, no, you got to have an actually slow person. I'm sorry. To play the role, like acting, the art form of acting is dying because of this whole cultural appropriation shit, which I don't agree with. I don't care. I don't mind that Ben Kingsley played an Indian man and won an Oscar for it. I don't care that Robert Downey Jr. played a black man in a fucking, well, he didn't really play a black man so much as he played a white man.
Who's playing another dude.
Who's playing another dude. Exactly. So my point is that stuff like that doesn't bother me. What does bother me is the inconsistency. Now, they actually cast a Mexican actor, Carlos Rivas, as the doctor, but then they cast Teresa as a white woman. And are you actually going to tell me that they couldn't find an attractive Latina who spoke English and acted in the 50s in California? Yeah, I'm going to call bullshit on that. Mm-hmm. So that's what bothers me, the inconsistency. If you're going to cast a Mexican guy as a Mexican role, then find a Mexican woman to do the Mexican role. So like I said, and that's a minor grievance. It's not even that big a deal, honestly. And in all honesty, Mara Corday, she did great in the movie. I actually love her in the movie. She's great. But like I said, it's the inconsistency that's a little jarring, especially when she tries to speak with a Mexican accent and it's like very obvious that she does not have a Mexican accent. It almost turns into a little bit of a comedy routine. No big deal, ultimately. It's like I said, minor grievance.
Yeah, like when I brought it up, it didn't bother me. I was because I know I was like other people that probably like pick this movie apart during the years of me watching like YouTube videos. They bring that, you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, people pick this movie apart just because it was a Mystery Science Theater movie. And what people have to understand is Mystery Science Theater didn't just make fun of bad movies, not at all. I mean, This Island Earth, one of their most popular episodes, is objectively a good movie from 1960 Universal Studios. I mean, it's a good movie. Just because Mystery Science Theater did a movie riff on it doesn't mean that they're making fun of it. It's just that for folks who don't know, early on, MST had to use movies that they could get the license to. You know, you can't legally just pick a movie and make a riff and air it on television. You have to get the licensing rights. And unfortunately, early on in Mystery Science Theater, they were pretty much slaves to whatever the TV studio that they were on had, whatever. And that's why we got a lot of stuff like The Giant Claw and, the Bride of the Monster and The Corpse Vanishes and movies like that, because those are the movies that particular TV channel had the rights to. So yeah, don't knock a movie just because MST or Riff Tracks or the Mads or whoever else has made fun of it. It's not that it's a bad movie. It's just that it's an easy movie for them to do movie riffs for. So, and The Black Scorpion is a perfect example. I personally think that this movie is a lot better than people give it credit for. I think the effects are great. I think the story is very simple but convincing. You know, a volcano erupts, exposing this ancient, cave system that houses these giant scorpions, or ancient scorpions that once freed grow exponentially based on what they eat. Because we actually do see them find one scorpion still inside of a piece of obsidian, and it is just a regular scorpion. We never find out if that particular scorpion ever grows. I figure eventually it would, but they don't really make a point of it in the movie. But yeah, I think the story is fine. It's serviceable. It's not Oscar worthy, but I mean, it's a lot better than a lot of the creature features that we got in the 50s or 60s. So like I said, for me personally, I love this movie. The other thing too, and I will absolutely admit that I am biased, I love scorpions. When I was right after college, when I was living in Pittsburgh, I actually raised emperor scorpions for a little while. Anyone who knows me knows that I have 2 scorpions tattooed on my right arm. I absolutely love scorpions, just arachnids in general, scorpions and spiders. It's something that I've always, since a kid, like literally at no point in my life have I ever been scared of spiders. In fact, as a little kid, my mother yelled at me because I tried to touch a black widow once, not realizing that it was a black widow. I just thought it was a basic spider. Anyway, point is, I have a love of arachnids, and that love translates to this movie. Like I said, the good effects, the fact that they didn't make the scorpion sound ridiculous. Like when Derek first mentioned this movie, I actually confused it for a different movie. When he said The Black Scorpion, I thought he meant Teenagers from Space. And if anybody who's ever seen Teenagers from Space, you remember that the monster in that movie was a giant Martian lobster. So obviously lobsters and scorpions have very similar body shapes, claws, exoskeletons, things like that. And in that movie, the lobster screams like a petulant child. I mean, he literally goes, "Ah!" Like, it's the most ridiculous roar I've ever heard in my life. So when Derek said The Black Scorpion, that's the movie I was thinking of. And I originally actually named this chat The Screaming Scorpion. Once I was 10 minutes into the movie, I realized, oh shit, this ain't the movie that I'm thinking of. So I actually changed the name of the chat to Mexican Scorpions Are Us. And yes. I think that's a little more fitting. And this movie is not an easy movie to find. My God. I had to go to many, many different places to find this one. I kept running into the Mystery Science Theater version way more often than the standalone version. Eventually, I did find the standalone version available on Tubi. It's on Tubi. So as much as I hate watching movies with commercials, time was running out.
I checked Tubi. The only one there is the Mystery Science Theater version.
Oh, maybe it was Pluto then. It was either Pluto or Tubi that I watched the standalone on. And they did both have the MST version. Yes, you are correct. So maybe it was Pluto then, not Tubi. But either way, I watched it on one of those free streaming apps that has commercials during the movies, which, like I said, anybody who knows me knows I can't stand it. I'd rather spend $40 on a 4K than watch a movie for free on television just so I can avoid commercials. I can't stand it. So anyway.
Yeah. That's same. Like I buy my mother movies all the time. She still watches them on TV. I'm like,
Yeah.
why? You
I
have
mean,
a fucking DVD of it right there.
I'll admit I'm guilty of that too. When one of my favorite movies comes on TV, if I run across it, I will stop and watch it, even though like, for example, The Exorcist. I own The Exorcist on like 6 to 8 different formats: VHS, laser, HD, 4K, just like every format that it's ever been on, I own it. But still, if I run into it on TV, I'm gonna stop and watch it. Even if it's just for one scene, I'm gonna stop and watch it. So yeah, I understand the mentality. When a movie is a favorite, it's a favorite.
Oh
So
yeah.
all right, so let's go ahead and get into this story. Not very complicated, a fairly simple story. Our movie opens up with a volcano erupting in Mexico. It turns out to be a historic volcano because it's gigantic. It ends up creating this new mountain system in Mexico that's, I think in the movie, they say it's like over 9,000 feet tall. Like it literally, this volcano created a new mountain system that's now one of the tallest mountains in Mexico. So, and of course, with that volcanic eruption, these scorpions were released. Unfortunately, we don't get to see any scorpions until the 33-minute mark of an hour and 28-minute movie, which might be a little much for some people. I mean, that's over half an hour of just science talk, and unfortunately the science doesn't always science in this movie. I mean, we accept it when it comes to creature features, 40s, 50s, 60s. I try not to get too crazy with the science because the science is almost always going to be incorrect, but it's not that big a deal. Basically, these two geologists, one Mexican, Dr. Ramos, and then an American geologist played by Richard Denning, Hank Scott, are basically doing a geological survey of this area around this town of San Lorenzo. Well, as it turns out, when they go out to do their survey of the area after the volcanic eruption, they find a police car. That police car has been destroyed and it's abandoned, and they can't find the police officer, but the radio in the car still works. So they end up contacting the police, letting them know that they found the car. Eventually, they do find the police officer in a really weird stance.
He's doing a Curly from City Slickers stance.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like they find him with his eyes completely wide open.
It kind of reminds me of Tremors too, like when they find that dead body in Tremors, like standing.
I don't know. This one made a little less sense because, like I said, he had no damage on him. Like the guy was basically, it's almost like he died of fright, which is possible. Absolutely. Like I said, he didn't have any limbs ripped off him. He didn't have any blood on him. He basically died in a standing position with his gun pointed in front of him and his eyes wide open with a look of absolute fear on his face. So it looked kind of odd. As soon as Dr. Scott took the gun out of the cop's hands, he does the prank fall and just falls over. Yep. Eventually, they realize that they're right near the town of San Lorenzo. The eruption of the volcano has knocked out one of the only roads that leads to San Lorenzo, along with the phone service. So the whole town is without phone service. Eventually, our two geologists do make it to the town. They end up meeting like the religious leader of the town, letting them know what exactly is happening. And they decide to go ahead and continue with their geological survey. While out there, they run into a woman who's riding on horseback. The horse ends up rearing up and knocking the woman off the horse. She falls off the horse and passes out. Dr. Ramos and Dr. Scott go on the hunt to find her. They end up finding her passed out on the ground. She magically comes to as soon as they walk up to her.
Thank you.
Yeah, almost like she's afraid of getting raped. Like even out cold, she's like, "Oh shit, 2 men are coming. Wake up." So
Richard Denning's coming, run.
Yeah, exactly. They find out that she is a local ranch owner. She raises and sells cattle from her family's ranch. Her father has passed away, so it's just her running the ranch with a slew of employees, like a couple of dozen of Mexican ranchers that work for her, plus about 100 head of cattle that she has on the farm. Eventually, Hank, Dr. Scott, and this woman who we find out is named Teresa Alvarez kind of develop a little bit of a romance. Well, almost like a forced romance because Hank definitely doesn't really give her much of a choice. It's not like he's being ultra forceful. It's just he's being really, really flirty. And it's very, very obvious he wants to get in her pants. It's obvious to her. It's obvious to everyone around them. Like Dr. Scott's not being nonchalant in any way, shape, or form. But like I said, it is respectful flirting. He's not forcing himself on her. So I don't mind the misogyny too much in this one.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually, we also meet more members of the town. We end up meeting Juanito, a little boy from San Lorenzo. I don't know if you guys noticed, but did you notice how Richard Denning called Juanito Juanita multiple times in the movie?
Juanita.
Yeah, he was using the female version instead of the male version. Honest mistake from an American actor who's probably never spoken Spanish, but I still find, as a Spaniard, I found it funny. I'm like, that's a boy, Why are you calling him Juanita? Anyway. So eventually our scientists, or eventually, I should say, eventually there is a siege at the 33-minute mark. We finally see our first Scorpion. He basically takes out a telephone truck. We see a couple of Mexican telephone employees who are restoring the phone service to the town of San Lorenzo. Unfortunately, right after they restore the phone line, our Scorpion shows up. And at this point in the movie, we still only think that there's one Scorpion. So we got our big black Scorpion. He ends up destroying the truck. He ends up killing both Mexican workers. Fortunately, they happen to be on the phone with Teresa at her ranch at the exact same time that they're attacked. So our geologist and Teresa are able to figure out that, oh shit, it looks like the Scorpion's on its way here. And then we get our scene. We get our big siege of San Lorenzo, which is actually a really, really well done scene. With the people running around in all directions. I will admit that some of the superimposed shots of the Scorpion over shots of people running didn't look great. But I do have a story for that. As it turns out, those shots were never meant to be in the movie. The movie ran out of money. The production ran out of money towards the end of the film. So all the scenes, those were supposed to be, stop motion Scorpions. Unfortunately, like I said, the production ran out of money. So they just went with the superimposed shots because they're a lot cheaper, easier to do. They don't look as good, but there's the story. So, because I remember the first time I saw that shot, the Scorpion superimposed over the human actors, I remember thinking, wow, that just looks awful. But hearing the story, it's like, well, they did what they could, because it's not like they're going to cut those scenes out completely just because they can't put a Scorpion in there. I mean, the movie would be like an hour and 10 minutes long or something. So there's your explanation for those shots. So with that explanation, I am a lot more forgiving of those shots. So I'm not going to knock the movie as much, even though those shots still don't look great to me. But, what are you going to do? Like I said, eventually our Scorpion attacks the town of San Lorenzo, pretty much, kills a bunch of people, destroys a large chunk of the town. Eventually, our geologists, along with some members of the military, end up finding the cave system where the Scorpion is living. And of course, our two geologists decide to, get lowered down into the system to see what they're up against, to see if they can find the lair of the Scorpion. On the way down there, they end up running into a Scorpion in the wall, which of course at this point in the movie, we still think there's only one Scorpion in the movie. So we think that's our titular Scorpion. So the doctors see that it's just kind of chilling in the wall. So they decide to continue being lowered down into the cave system. Then we start seeing other creatures in the system. And this is another reason that I love this movie. They didn't just give us one giant Scorpion running around a town. They gave us multiple creatures. The first one that we see besides the Scorpions is this worm-like creature. It's really weird. It's like a worm, but it's got claws, arms or claws, whatever you want to. At first, I thought it looked like a scorpion with no legs, but it's very obviously not. It's like a worm type thing, but for some reason it has arms. Eventually, the Scorpions end up attacking that worm thing, killing it, and we see one of the Scorpions rip a chunk off the worm and basically start consuming it. And then eventually Juanito, who was not supposed to come down into the cave system, snuck into the cave system, and he ends up running into another insect. And this is a trapdoor insect. Now, in real life, we have trapdoor spiders. They dig a hole in the ground, they put a bunch of debris over the hole, and then when prey walks by, they jump out and grab it and pull it down into their lair. Well, this wasn't a spider because it was a six-legged insect. It looked more like a tick. It looked exactly like a giant tick. So I'm going to call it a trapdoor tick. But basically, Juanito walks by the trapdoor. He sees that something is moving under it. And in his infinite wisdom, he decides to open the trapdoor himself. I mean, I'm sorry, but at 7 years old, if I saw that thing shaking, I'm running the fuck out of there. But whatever. Juanito is way more brave than I am. He actually manually opens the trapdoor, and out comes the giant tick. Just a badass looking insect, like way cooler looking than the worm. The worm almost looked like it was an afterthought, like they just kind of added it last minute because it doesn't really resemble anything in real life. But at least the tick looked cool. He looked exactly like a flea or a tick or something like that. The geologists are able to kill the tick with guns. This is literally the only insect that they're able to kill with guns. Obviously, most insects have exoskeletons, and those exoskeletons are usually very sturdy. So, I mean, if you shoot a giant scorpion, the bullet's probably just going to bounce right off of it. And that's what they're implying throughout the film, that these scorpions are so armored that they can't be shot with conventional weapons. Eventually, our geologists see they see the big scorpion show up. I'll call him the head scorpion, if you will. He's easily about 50 to 75% bigger than all of the other scorpions in the lair. And we basically see him just start unmercifully killing his brothers and sisters, just killing all these scorpions. This is how the geologists are able to discover that scorpions actually have a soft spot underneath their palate. Right below their head. And that's where, when one scorpion attacks another scorpion, that's where they inject their venom. By the way, yes, scorpions are cannibalistic in real life. They will eat each other if they're hungry enough. It's not their food of choice. Scorpions don't necessarily hunt other scorpions, but if they're hungry enough and they run into one, yeah, they'll cannibalize them happily. So again, that's accurate to real life. So I'm not sure if the makers of this movie actually knew that, or if they just assumed all insects and arachnids are cannibalistic. But yes, scorpions very obviously are. So nice job there. And like I said, the geologists discovered that they do have a weak point underneath the palate. So they decide that they need to try to either shoot something into that soft area to try to kill the scorpions. Now, unfortunately, at this point, a bunch of scorpions start coming out of the woodwork. And this is where they realize that this isn't just a one or two scorpions. This is like an entire nest. Now, this is where the science starts to get a little shitty. Scorpions are not horde creatures. They are loners. Scorpions do not have a hive. They don't hang around in numbers for the most part. They're solitary creatures. They prefer to live alone. They hunt at night. It's just the way they are. Even when they reproduce, they don't actually have a form of intercourse. They basically drop their sperm sac on the ground, and then they position the female so that her vagina is right over the sperm sac, and then they push her down on it. So literally, scorpions don't actually have intercourse. It's almost like artificial insemination, but with real scorpion sperm. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, point is, that has nothing to do with the movie. Like I said, the geologists discover that the scorpions have a weak point, but they realize that the sun is going down. And if the sun goes down, all these scorpions are going to come out and continue attacking the town of San Lorenzo. So what they decide to do is to basically set up a bunch of TNT at the entrance of the caverns and just set it all off and close the entrance. Now, they think that this is the only entrance to this cave system. Anybody who knows anything about cave systems and scorpions knows they can find an exit and entrance almost anywhere. If they got to sit there and dig for days, they will do it. Scorpions are that determined. So at first they celebrate. They think that they've taken care of the situation. Unfortunately, Dr. Ramos and Dr. Scott are called into Mexico City. by an expert, what was his name? Dr. Velasco, basically an expert from Mexico City that they've been working with back and forth on this whole situation. They end up going back to Mexico City with Teresa Alvarez in tow, because at this point, Hank and Teresa are solidly in love, and it seems like they're just going to do everything together, much to the chagrin of the military, because Teresa's getting dragged around everywhere. Well, she's going voluntarily. It's not like Hank is dragging her around, but you know what I mean. At this meeting in Mexico City, the military and Dr. Velasco let Dr. Scott and Dr. Ramos know that they did not close the system the way that they thought they did. They have aerial pictures of more scorpions. Apparently, the head scorpion was still alive and somehow found a way out of the cave system. And a military helicopter that was flying over the area took some pictures, proving that, yes, there are still giant scorpions left alive. So at this point, they realize that the scorpions are on their way to Mexico City. So if you thought the San Lorenzo siege was going to be bad, Mexico City is about 100 times more populated. So yeah, that's going to be fun. Honestly, and I don't know if my co-hosts agree with me, I actually like the San Lorenzo siege better than the Mexico City one, because with the Mexico City one being later in the movie, they had to use more of those superimposed shots, because remember, I said that the production was running out of money. The San Lorenzo siege was early in the movie, so they were able to do all, stop motion scorpions for that attack. Unfortunately, by the time they get to the Mexico City attack, production has run out of money. So there's still a good amount of stop motion during the Mexico City siege. There's a lot of the black superimposed shots that I'm not a big fan of. But again, since we know the reason, I'm a lot more forgiving of it now. Eventually, Dr. Velasco starts being ambiguous with Dr. Scott, and he starts talking about the weapon. And at any time Dr. Scott asks him about the weapon, the doctor doesn't give him a direct answer. So it's like no one knows what the fuck this weapon is until we get to our final scene. And let's go ahead and get to it. Basically, our final scene occurs at a stadium in Mexico City. By the way, Don and Derek, did you guys notice that the stadium had football lines on the field?
Yes.
They don't play American football in the 1950s in Mexico. The NFL didn't even exist yet. So, yeah, I mean, if the movie was set in America, I could understand why they did it. Obviously, they did it so that American audiences would feel a little bit more, comfortable, or like they relate a little bit more. But I mean, we know this stadium's in Mexico City, and we know they don't play football in Mexico City. So again, not something that's that detrimental to the movie, just something that I found funny. It should have been soccer lines on the field instead of American football lines, but whatever. Anyway, point is, when they get to the stadium, they find out that the weapon in question is actually a giant taser. They basically have this gigantic harpoon that's connected to a generator that can generate 600,000 volts. Now, this is where the science starts to fall apart a little bit. Well, I mean, the science was already falling apart. For anybody who knows anything about voltage, if this thing generated a 600,000 volt charge, it would have killed everybody within a 10 to 15 foot radius of that scorpion. Anybody who had
been dead.
Yeah, anybody who was standing on the ground would have completed the circuit that the 600,000 volt harpoon was sending. So literally everyone would have died. But again, it's a movie, suspend disbelief, I'll allow it. It's just funny that they went with that number, 600,000. It's like, where the fuck did you get that number from in 1957? It's like they just decided to just pick a big number, whether it's accurate or not. They could have gone with 100,000 volts, and that would have been a lot more accurate, but whatever. 600,000 sounds better, so whatever. We see a big battle between the military and the giant scorpion. At this point, the giant scorpion, the head scorpion, is the only one left alive. He has basically cannibalized all of his brothers and sisters. Earlier in the movie, they mentioned that normal scorpions, can go days without eating, but because of the metabolism of these giant scorpions, they need to eat their body weight in meat every 2 or 3 days. So this giant scorpion he's bound and determined to be the last survivor. He is just eating everybody. On top of the fact that people aren't big enough for him, like the smaller scorpions, we see them attacking people, picking them up with their pincers, pulling them apart, whatever the case may be. But to the head scorpion, he doesn't even see the people. They're like specks on the ground. They're
mini
ants.
M&Ms.
Yeah, they're little morsels, exactly. So instead of attacking people, he just attacks the other scorpions, which again I just thought was hysterical, but accurate to real life. So I do like that part of it. Like I said, eventually they're able to shoot the harpoon. The first time they shoot it, they miss, unfortunately, but then the second time they shoot it, they get it right into that soft palate right there under their head. They turn on the charge and the scorpion starts writhing. I will say I really like the fact that they dragged it out a little bit, because I was expecting them to turn on the power and the scorpion would just like explode or something. But instead, they made this scorpion writhe around in pain. Even while it was writhing around in pain, it was still defending itself. It was still taking down helicopters. It was still taking down tanks while it was getting 600,000 bolts pumped into it. Eventually, of course, it starts to get weak, and eventually it does die. It falls to the ground, and that, my friends, is the end of the movie. And for some reason, Derek is sad about the death of the giant scorpion. I think it's funny.
Is it because of his face? The face.
I know, but the face. I mean, I haven't even spoken much about the face. Actually, I've talked about the stop motion and how much I enjoy it. That close up of his face, goddamn! I'm not going to call it terrible, because it is mildly accurate to real life. Like, scorpions do have two eyes, especially emperor scorpions do have two eyes on top of their head. The only problem is these look like human eyes in the movie. Yes. They literally look like dilated human eyes, and it's like, whoa, that's a little off-putting. And then the other thing is that he's got a mouthful of teeth. With scorpions don't have teeth. Scorpions have a mouth like the predator. You know how the predator has that segmented mouth that opens up with 4 mandibles?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what a scorpion's real mouth is like. They basically have 4 mandibles that just kind of pull the food into their mouths, but they don't have teeth. So that's why whenever I see the close-up... Yeah, so every time I see a close-up of the scorpion, it definitely, it makes me smile. I don't like throw my hands up in the air in frustration or anything. I do find it funny. The thing that I do find egregious, though, is the drooling. I'm sorry, my friends. Scorpions don't fucking drool. Spiders don't drool. Arachnids don't have saliva. That's why spiders liquefy their food with their venom, and they just slurp up the juices.
Whoever the director was based it on his dog. That's all I'm going to do.
Well, even a more practical reason, the scorpions are desert creatures. Wasting drool is like wasting water.
Yeah, valid. But to that point, these are emperor scorpions, and emperor scorpions are not desert scorpions. They are actually rainforest scorpions. They live in trees in the rainforest. For those who don't know, emperor scorpions are the least dangerous to humans. Those are the kind of scorpions that I was raising back in Pittsburgh. I would never, ever raise scorpions that could actually kill a human being. That's suicide. So if you ever see a scorpion that's like light brown or tan or yellow, run for your fucking life. Those are the scorpions that can kill you. But if you see a big black scorpion, just pick them up. I mean, literally, if they sting you, it feels less painful than a bee sting. Like, literally, I've been stung many times when I was raising my scorpions. Anytime I had to clean their tanks, which usually was twice a year, we had to clean scorpion tanks, because scorpions don't poop that much. They only eat like once a week, and they only poop like once a month. So you don't have to clean the tanks all that much.
I'm going to have a lot of YouTube videos to watch later.
But I mean, whenever I did clean my scorpion's tank, they would get a little pissy, and they'd catch me every now and again. But like I said, it's like a bee sting, no big deal. And the amount of venom that an emperor scorpion has is not remotely dangerous to a human being. So yeah, remember, the bigger the scorpion, the safer it is. The smaller the scorpion, run for your fucking life. So there's your scorpion lesson for the day, folks. And I don't know what else we could really talk about. I mean, we've gotten to the end. Obviously, Teresa and Hank have their happy ending. They're able to go off, and literally as soon as the giant scorpion is dead, they don't even wait around to be debriefed. They're like, "Fuck, we're out. We're horny. later. They literally take off instantly. And they even have like the last joke of the movie implies that, yeah, well, we've got something to do too. Yeah, they're going to go bump uglies in a tent somewhere. Who knows? But yeah, there you go, folks. That is The Black Scorpion, 1957. Like I said, most people that watch this, especially if you're watching it for the first time in 2025, you're going to think it's kind of cheesy, it's low budget, and you're not necessarily wrong. But for those of us who are really ingrained into the whole culture of creature features, especially going all the way back to the 20s and 30s, I think this movie is greatly underappreciated. I think it is so much better than the majority of creature features that we got in the 50s. Obviously, Them is like the pinnacle, and Gojira and movies like that. But like Don said, I would put The Black Scorpion easily near the top of the second tier of creature features. I absolutely love this movie. I like the story. I like the characters. There's very little about this movie that I don't like, other than maybe some of the science and some of the real world scorpion things that are done in the movie. But considering the movie does a lot right, I have to give it its props. For a 1957 movie, they actually did get a lot of their science right. They got a good amount of it wrong too, but they got a lot of it right. So I'll give them credit for that. So yeah, there you go, folks. The Black Scorpion. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my co-host. Let's go ahead and start with the man who picked this movie, Derek, and find out. Derek, do you have any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Well, first thing I wanted to say was, because I did some information, Mara Corday was actually also in Tarantula. That was the other movie she was in.
Tarantula, okay.
Yes, which we might talk about one day, because you love arachnids.
Yup.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. Like it had like Venom said with the science stuff. That's kind of like also kind of typical with like 50s B movies, where take it as a grain of salt because you'll hear a bunch of stupid bullshit in these type of movies too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like in going back to the Giant Claw, they call it a fucking battleship for most of the movie. I'm like, how the fuck do you confuse that with a battleship? You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Yeah, but I love the Black Scorpion. I'm glad everybody else did. If you haven't seen it, fucking give it a watch. Good shit.
Absolutely. Definitely. All right, Don, any closing thoughts on The Black Scorpion?
I mean, most of everything's already been said. So
awesome. All right,
Mic
folks.
drop.
Well, yeah, I like it. All right, folks. Well, that'll do it for Creature Comforts episode 40. We have not picked our movie for next month, so I don't have any homework for anyone. But, hopefully we'll announce it on one of our other shows on No More Room in Hell. So if you're a listener of all the shows, then once the movie is picked and we have a date and everything, which obviously won't be till sometime in August, but once we have that, we will definitely announce it. So once again, on behalf of Derek B. and Don Anelli, I am Mr. Venom, thanking you all so much for joining us for Creature Comforts episode 40. Hopefully we'll see you next month, and let's go ahead and say bye to the folks.
Later.
Peace out.
Name all your scorpions Ramon.
Oh, yes.